Welcome back to She Talks Money, the podcast where we talk about building real wealth, making smart money decisions, and creating a life that actually supports you. And today's conversation is one that might stop you in your tracks. Because what if I told you you could do everything right financially, work hard, earn well, build a life, and still find yourself starting over later in life? Today's guest, David Nassif, has lived that reality. After decades of working, building, and doing what many would consider all the right things, David hit rock bottom at 63. But instead of staying there, he rebuilt. But what's so powerful about his story isn't just the comeback, it's what he discovered along the way. That most people don't fail financially because they didn't work hard enough. They fail because they didn't have a clear, simple plan. Today, David is the creator of the One-Page Wealth Compass, a framework designed to help people simplify their financial life, gain clarity, and actually know where they're going. This conversation is about what really causes financial breakdowns and how to course correct at any stage of life. David, I am so glad you're here. Welcome to She Talks Money.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm excited to be here with you today.
Perfect. So your story is so incredibly powerful. Can you kind of take us back to that moment at 63 when everything changed? What did rock bottom actually look like for you?
Well, like you mentioned, I was 63. I just got fired after 18 years with the same company. I would not wish that day on anybody. When I did the
Wow.
math, it was brutal. I figured that if we drained all of our savings and all of our retirement, we would be broke by 65. And at this point, I'm thinking, who's going to hire me at my age? But Jennifer, I'm going to tell you, the hardest part, that was very hard, very hard. But the hardest part was driving home thinking, how am I going to tell my wife, Mary? We'd been married
Mm.
for 30 years, and she did not deserve the mess I just threw our life into. So after a couple months of dead-end job searching, and my heart wasn't in it. I did not want to go back to the corporate world. I was kicking and screaming, but I had to earn money. I mean, we had a 2 year
Yeah.
runway, which is very short. So anyways,
Yep.
I decided to take a big risk because nothing else was working. And I decided to go to work as an independent sales agent on straight commission. No salary, no safety net, no benefits. And I'm telling you, the first months were brutal. Cold
Mm.
calls, constant rejection, rookie mistakes. I heard more no's in that month or two period than I think I've ever heard in my life. It was just crazy. But looking back, I can reflect on it now. Those rejections, that pushback I was getting from everybody, that resistance I was getting was the resistance I needed to build the mental muscles I needed to punch
Mhm.
through that dark period that was absolutely miserable and scary at the same time. But here's
Yeah.
the deal. After 10 months of grinding, I was suddenly making more money than my good paying corporate salary. And for a very brief moment, Jennifer, I felt like we made it. But then I realized we didn't make anything because I'd been making decent money for 40 years and look where it got me on the edge of financial disaster. I
Hmm.
said, I have to learn how to invest. I had to learn how to manage my money because I obviously was doing it wrong for 40 years or I wouldn't be in the situation I was. So what I did, I didn't have time for complicated theories. I dug in, I read 21 books. Okay, I listened
Wow.
to 13 podcasts faithfully on finances. I read blogs, newsletters. Every time I got a good idea, Jennifer, I'd put it on a piece of paper. And then when the paper filled up, what I did is I said, I want to keep it simple to one piece of paper. So I would if I got a good idea, I would take the least good idea and throw it off the paper and put the better one on. And I kept refining it and refining it. Finally, I had what I call a one-page wealth compass. It just gave me the direction I needed and a set it and forget it approach because I had a company to now run, so I couldn't be tinkering with Wall Street and all that kind of thing. 6 years later, I hit what we achieved what I thought was impossible. From terrified of being broke to a seven-figure portfolio and real financial freedom. Jennifer, I now know it is never too late to rewrite your story if you have the right direction because I'm proof of it. I started as late as 63. Anybody can do it.
That's amazing. And one thing that really stands out that you just talked about was, and I'm going to totally butcher this because I don't remember who it was and I don't remember the
It's okay.
school, but I remember Ed Milet had a guest on his podcast who was talking about their college years, and I'm pretty sure it was like an Ivy League school. And one of their professors, like their assignment was they had to go out and they had to get like a certain number of no's. Like they had to
Yeah,
ask for things and
yeah,
get told no. Like the goal was actually to get told no. And like And this particular person realized, like, well, if I'm going to be told no either way, like, why don't I go after big things instead of just little things? And so I love that your story really started out with like so many no's, but in the end, that really set you up for huge success. So that is super cool.
And I gotta
Um,
say, Jennifer, just to go along with what you just said, I am so grateful for those no's because today I can walk in any place, and I don't
mhm.
have any fear of no. I don't even bother me, and I couldn't say that at 63 when I first was starting. I couldn't say that then.
Yeah. I always say sometimes we do the best when we when we have nothing to lose, right? When you have
Yeah,
nothing to lose and you're already there and you just have to go for it, then you might people are a little bit more risk taking.
yeah.
So many people listening are, they're high functioning, successful, they're doing well on the outside. What do you think are the most common blind spots that lead people into financial trouble like later in life?
Well, a lot of it is they don't even realize what's happening while it's happening. They feel like everything is
Mhm.
fine, like I did for 40 years. Let me share with you a brief true story that inspired me to do this compass because when I was going through this, I heard this and I thought, well, this makes perfect sense. Scientists at the Max Planck Institute did an experiment. What they did is they placed people in the center of a dense German forest and told them to walk in a straight line to the edge. Now, these were confident and capable people. But
Mhm.
when the clouds covered the sun and they lost their navigation point, all of a sudden the GPS tracking was showing they were gradually starting to walk in circles. Some of them were actually ending up
Mhm.
right back where they began. And yet each and every one of these people, Jennifer, said they were absolutely convinced they were walking in a perfectly straight line. That is me for 40 years. Working hard, making decent money, doing what I thought was the right thing, but ultimately going back in circles and never getting anywhere. And so when I heard that, I said, that's why I need a compass, but not a metal compass. I need a
Mhm.
one piece of paper compass that keeps me laser focused on my objective because I didn't know I was walking in circles. They didn't know they were walking in circles in the forest. And many of your listeners probably feel like, oh, I'm just fine. I'm doing just good. And it's like,
Mhm.
wait a minute, are you sure about that? Because
Yeah.
it's a disaster at the end if you're not 100% sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just function on like, well, I feel okay. I'm okay. I pay my bills. I buy what I want. I'm okay. And I have a savings, but they never really
Yeah,
actually do the math on it. And it
yeah.
doesn't have to be
No,
complicated math. It's pretty simple. Like, I have X number of years left to work. I need X amount when I retire to live, like what my life expectancy is, and
yeah,
what do I need to have in that cushion at that point to pay me what I want to be paid. And but so many people don't pay attention to that or don't even think
no,
about that. They just kind of
no.
live life and they're going through the motions, and I've been there. I have two kids. Life is busy. Like sometimes
Sure.
just getting through that day is a success, but you can't ignore that. So
Yes.
what do you think are the biggest lessons you learned during that rebuilding phase that you wish more people understood earlier?
That if you really do understand the math, you can do things that just seem like they were impossible. Let me give you an example. One of the things I did, which to this day I'm really amazed, is I was able to double my portfolio three times in a very short 6 year period. Now, most people on
Wow.
Wall Street would say that's not possible, David. The market didn't go up that high. You're lying, or you're cheating, or something like that.
Mhm.
Let me assure you, I wasn't day trading, I wasn't chasing crypto, and I wasn't trying to time the market. I was doing something so simple and so boring it would put you to sleep. What I did is found an investment approach, and when the market crazy. When the market was down, Jennifer, I was thrilled. When other people were panicking and selling, I was buying
Mhm.
more shares at discount prices.
Yes.
My only regret was the market was down more during that 6 year period. But it was the
Yes.
math that's the math that surprised me. Here's what I'm talking about. There's a thing called the rule of 72. And what it says is if you are getting a 10% return, which is a realistic return, um, it'll take you 7.2 years, or roughly every 86 months, your money will double. Well, once I
Hmm.
started the compass, my first double occurred in just 30 months. My second one, 13 months. My third one, 29 months, for an average of 24 months, way less than half the expected 86-month time period. But the
Hmm.
secret wasn't the returns. I was doing three things, Jennifer, that a lot of people figure out too lately. First, I was saving a good portion of my income. I said, listen, my time is short. I need to get serious about putting a portion away. Secondly, I was putting it in the right kind of investments. For me, what I found out in my research, low cost index funds. Those are
Hmm.
the best, and I only have two of them because I keep it super, super simple. I own one that, that I invest in every publicly traded stock in the United States. The other one invests in every publicly traded stock outside the United States. So Jennifer, I literally own every single publicly traded stock on the planet. For me to go
Wow.
broke, the entire world economic system would have to collapse. And if that happens, we have bigger problems in the stock market. So
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
sleep well at night. So what I'm just saying, it's not high risk like it might sound like to some people. But there's one last thing I want to point out. What I did also is I used market volatility to work for me instead of against me. So many
Okay.
people they like to buy high and sell low, which is the opposite of what you want to do. Here's the crazy thing. If you went to the store, Jennifer, and they had a sale 50% off, you wouldn't say, hey, I don't want no 50% off. Tell me when it goes back to full retail. That's when I want to buy things. I don't buy discounts. You would never do that. But yet we do
Right.
that with the stock market all the time. Oh my gosh, the market's down 50%. I got to get my money out. I don't. No, that's when you want to buy. That's exactly
Yes.
when you want to buy. So I was able to build my wealth twice as fast, and this is the important part, with half the risk compared to how so many people are doing it, using that approach.
Love that. So you created the one-page wealth compass, which I love because it simplifies something that feels really overwhelming to people, right? Can you
Yeah.
walk us through what it is and how it works?
Yes, I can actually. In fact, I'm going to give this to all of your listeners for free at the end. So
Oh,
I'm going to give you
amazing.
I'm going to give you my secret sauce right now, and you'll all have it to take. Basically, I did it in two parts. This is really what this is. Is this your 30,000 foot view? You know how sometimes you start going in circles. Well, if you can see the big picture, you go, "Oh no, I'm veering off. I gotta get back here." Okay. Well, that's what this is. First is the 9 trail markers. This tells you where you're at. Some people they're at an income issue. They aren't making enough or whatever. Other people say, no, I'm making good money, but I've got a debt problem. Wherever you are in your life, in your finances, you can go right to the step that you're at and start at that point. You have to start back at the beginning again, okay? And
Hmm.
that's what it really gives you a step-by-step plan. So when you are looking at it, you know exactly where you are and where you want to go. The second piece is the North Star principles. There's 5 of those. Here's why I have those. Have you ever started a plan or something, and then some shiny object came along or some hot tip, and all of a sudden you got distracted, and all of a sudden you were way off your plan because
Hmm.
all this distraction. Well, this keeps you on plan because it tells you, okay, for example, live on less than you earn. Okay, that's the first deal. And so if you've
Hmm.
got a lot of credit card debt and you keep getting more credit card debt, that's evidence. That's mathematical evidence you are living beyond your means. So it's just
Hmm.
simple things to keep you focused, and when a new thing comes along, you can say, hey, does this fit my North Star principles?
Hmm.
And the last thing, Jennifer, is every one of these principles. Like, say you're trying to you're at the point you want to get rid of debt. Okay, you say, well, David, I need more than just telling me to get out of debt and a couple of points here. I want the details. That's where the book comes in, Jennifer, and that's why I wrote the book. This
Okay.
is like the ground game. This is like the 30,000 foot view, and this is like the map. Okay, turn right here, turn left here. So if you're trying to get out of debt, it says go to chapter 4, and you would turn to chapter 4, and it gives you all the ways to get out of debt, the simple ways that everyone can do in the most time efficient way. And when you bring all these together, I call them my 3D compass view, because you've got the big picture, you've got the ground game, and you've got
Hmm.
the links to tell you where to go. And here's the bottom line: clear direction beats misdirected speed every time. Before I had this compass, 40 years I was struggling. When I got this compass, 6 years I accomplished more financially than I did in the previous 40 years. That's real clear direction. I was just spinning my wheels before, and now I had a clear target, if that makes sense.
And do you think people just don't do this because they think it's more complicated than it is? Like, where do you think people go wrong?
That's the thing. Here's the financial industry. That's their mission, to make you think it's too complicated. Jennifer,
Yeah.
you can't do this by yourself. You're not a financial analyst. You got to hire me, and let me get my fees in there, and I'll get a chunk of your deal. It's not complicated. And when I really dug in myself, I thought back. I was so embarrassed the 40 years. I fell for all this stuff, and I'm not saying they're bad people. They're trying to make a living too, but don't make a living off me. Make a living off
Right.
somebody else. And so
Right.
when you understand the simplicity of it, it really. One of the things I did, Jennifer, I made a commitment to myself. This book right here, it wasn't going to be another financial planning book. It is written with stories about real people, myself included, what we did right, what we did wrong. So when you're reading the book, you're saying, oh my gosh, this person really messed up. This person got it. Then I bring the principle in, you go, that's what they mean. I've heard that for
Oh.
years, but I never really got it before. Let me give you, this is an interesting, I got this recently. I just got to share it with you because it really says it. This is from a clinical psychologist, 25 years experience. He was facing his own financial crisis. He said, David, the one-page compass gave me the exact financial hope and practical steps I needed. But here's the part I really thought was good. He says, I couldn't put the book down. It's not for financial nerds. If you're a financial nerd, then you might be a little like, oh, come on. But these are stories for everyday people so you can relate to the principles in finance and know this is not complicated like Wall Street trying to make it. It's really not complicated. And if you understand it and it's presented the right way, you're saying, I get it. Kindle's telling me people are reading this book to the end. Usually when you get an ebook, you read like a chapter 2, then you go on. They're reading the entire book to the end. You're thinking, this is like really weird that people want.
That's amazing.
Because it's so, it just captures your interest when you get involved in the stories, that kind of thing. So.
And I'm excited to read it because I will tell you, being in the field that I am and hosting this podcast, I do read a lot of finance books. And to your point, a lot of them are really dry. Like I have to force myself, and then I get really tired because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is boring. So I can't wait to pick it up because I think when you can share that kind of information through storytelling and relatability of other people's lives, then it clicks faster, right? And it just makes a lot more sense.
Jen, I have a question for you. Can I have a quick question? Have you ever read a really good book and there was a principle in it you says, man, that's going to change my life. I'm going to use it. Then 2 years later, you come across, you go, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that. I haven't done it. That's where this compass comes in. One of the things I do, if you look at my electronic calendar, every Friday at 4 p.m., I have a 2-minute review of my compass, where I'm at, what's my next step, and where are my North Star principles. A couple of months ago, I did an impulse purchase. Shame on me, I did impulse purchase. And when I did my compass review that Friday, it said, it reminded me, no, you got to wait 24 hours before you make an impulse purchase and to see if it was real or not. And so guess what it did? It stopped me from keep doing that. You know how when you don't have this thing to rein you in, all of a sudden you're got $100,000 out because you just kept going off and off. Well, this every week, it just reins you in just for 2 minutes. And it's really more of a system than just a book. It's a behavioral system to keep you in a positive way, getting you to where you want to go. So you're not like me at 63 saying, oh my gosh, what happened? I don't want that for anybody.
I talk all the time with my audience about having a weekly finance date with yourself.
Perfect.
It doesn't take long. To your point, 5-10 minutes, sit down, kind of look at and now David's giving you the outline and literally the compass to look at to kind of keep you on track. So now my background. I run a mortgage business, so I have to ask, from your perspective, where do you think real estate fits into somebody's like overall wealth plan?
Very good. In other words, I believe most people, not 100%, but I'd say most people, it's ideal to own your own home. You don't want to retire and then have to keep paying rent to people. You want to be able to retire and have your house paid for and that kind of thing. I am not against mortgage debt, by the way. That's the one debt I am really saying, oh, you got to do that because one thing is, the property is appreciating over time. I'm not saying every year it appreciates a great deal, but I'm just saying over time it'll appreciate. And so you're not, whereas you have credit card debt, you got nothing there. You're just paying interest on nothing, air. Whereas you got a home or you got real estate of some type, you're paying debt, but you're also having appreciation happen, and it's a positive. It's the one kind of debt that I say, hey, no, that's the one thing you better do unless you have cash.
I talk a lot about good debt versus bad debt, and bad debt obviously is you're paying interest. It's taking more money away from you. Good debt is you're actually buying an asset that will go up in value, so that's not always a bad thing. So, all right, rebuilding at 63 obviously takes a lot of resilience. What do you think kept you going during that time?
Well, once I got my compass in place, I started to see baby step results. Okay, I'm not going to say, boy, in the first year I was a millionaire. No. It took a while. It took 6 years. Okay, but here's the point. When you start seeing little, things going in the right direction, you start feel like, hey, this could really work. And it just that little result you see, it just really gives you that pat on the back or that cheering encouragement that's tangible, that you can say, this is actually working for me. And or like if you're in debt and your debt's going down every month and you're seeing that, or if you're investing and your money, your portfolio is growing, and that's better than any pep talk anybody could ever give you, and it just kept me motivated to say, I'm gonna make this happen. I'm going to tell you, after about a year, Jennifer, I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, now it was 5 years out. Okay, but when you see that light at the end of the tunnel, it just makes things so much better. And my wife's so supportive. Without her support, it would have not happened. So I think both seeing results and having a supportive spouse both really made a difference.
That's amazing. And that kind of leads into my next question. Like, what would you say to someone who's feeling like they're really behind or that they've made too many mistakes to even recover?
Okay, learn the mistakes, because It's never too late. Even if you're 63, like I was, but I'm guessing most of your listeners aren't 63. They're probably a little younger than that, so they have a big advantage. Boy, if you were 53 or 43 or 33, oh my gosh, you guys, I could have done so much if I was figured this out then. But I'm a slow learner, I guess. But let me tell you why understanding what works and doesn't work makes a big difference. Okay, the biggest financial mistake people make, in my book, is they're paying tiny termite-sized fees that quietly inflict termite-like destruction on their portfolio. So let me explain what I'm talking about here. You got two people starting off in their career, both going to work 40 years, which most people do, okay? And they decide, both people, we're going to put $25 a week. Now, that's a pretty modest amount, okay? $25 a week in investments, each of them separately, and we're going to just do that for 40 years. Person A chooses a low-cost index fund with a 0.03% annual management fee. Person B goes to an advisor who charges a full 1%, which is standard for an advisor, and he puts him in an active fund with a 5.75 upfront load and a 0.66% ongoing management fee. Okay, now they both are putting in the same amount of money. Let's fast forward 40 years. Assuming historical market returns and the exact same contributions, person A has a portfolio of $1 million, $25 a week. Person B has a portfolio of $570,000. Jennifer, that's a $430,000 difference. That's not market timing. That's not bad investment. That is strictly fees quietly eating away. Doesn't 1% sound little to you? I mean, it just sounds so tiny. And 0.66, that sounds so little. Okay, but it's funny how compounding really makes that destructive. We assumed, Jennifer, they never got a raise. If we factored normal raises, that $4.3 million, the $430,000 difference would even be bigger. But here's the real tragedy. Person B probably thinks like, oh, I have a great advisor. I like him. We went golfing. He knows my kids' names. Little did he realize he did the equivalent of funding someone else's retirement with half of his own. And I'm embarrassed to admit this on your show, but I'm going to say this. I never questioned fees for 40 years. I thought those were just the rules of the game, and that's what you have to do. After I got my compass, I realized the rules we don't question can cost us the most. In person B's case, it cost him $430,000. Wouldn't it be nice to have an extra $430,000 when you retire than less than that?
Absolutely.
So if your listeners, I just want to say, when you understand the game, and it's not complicated to understand it, it really, you can make a lot of progress a lot shorter period of time than,
Perfect. So if someone wanted to sit down today and get really clear, what do you think are the first few pieces or the first three things that they should do?
Well, I'm going to tell you, it's going to be different for different people, okay? And so let me explain. If you'll just download this for free, and we'll tell you how to do it at the end of the program. First step is to find out where the heck you're at right now, okay? And I know your listeners are going to probably anywhere from 1 to 9. Some will be 1, 2, 5. No, they'll all be different places. So find out, because a blanket advice, everybody do this. Well, wait a minute, I'm ahead of that. I don't really need that, or I'm behind that. I don't, So that's why I say find out where you are. That's 1. 2, get that step and look. Say, what chapter do I need to look at and read so I can start making progress in that step. And then the third thing is have that 2-minute meeting or 3-minute meeting once a week on your calendar, same time, same day. That's the key thing. I know Fridays at 4, that's my time to have my meeting with myself. And that has done so much for me. And it's built me, it just made a big difference. Kept me aligned, kept me focused,
I love that. So if you, David, could sit down with your younger self or someone in their 30s or 40s, what would you tell them about money and building wealth?
Well, I would tell them to stop believing the lie that you have to make a lot of money. I'm sure some of your listeners and people all over there think, well, that's nice for you and Jennifer say that, but we don't make that kind of money. Okay, let me explain. It's not about the size of your paycheck, it's how you use it. Let me give you proof of what I'm saying, okay? The NBA, the National Basketball Association, the average player makes over $10 million a year. I didn't say, Jennifer, $10 million in their career. I said in a single year they make $10 million.
Wow.
And yet, 5 years after retirement, 60% of them are broke, according to the Netflix documentary Broke. And the NFL is even worse. NFL players, after only 2 years of retirements, 78% of them are either bankrupt or in serious financial straits. That's according to Sports Illustrated. Now let's compare that to Dale Schroeder, a basketball-loving carpenter who made average to below average income his entire life. He lived on less than he earned, invested the difference wisely, He ended up with a $3 million portfolio. That's more than most of the NBA and the NFL players with their $10 million fees. And this is a little guy who doesn't make much money. So what I'm saying is, please don't say to yourself, people who are listening, oh, I don't make enough money. I mean, in my book, I have several examples of a janitor who ended up with $8 million. A janitor with $8 million. So it's like, it's not about the size of your paycheck. Here's what I found out after I built my compasses. Making money and building wealth are two separate skill sets. Those basketball players, they were pros at making money. I mean, who makes over $10 million a year? Not very many people. But they were, not all of them, were lousy at building wealth. Dale Schroeder, I have to tell it, a nice guy, but he was pretty bad at making money. But he was a master at building wealth. And when you understand there's two, I thought because I made good money for 40 years, I understood finances. I don't need that. I got it all. I mean, I got it handled. Wow, I was like the basketball players on much less income. I mean, I just didn't get it,
Yeah. So any final thoughts for the audience, and then where can we find you? We're going to make sure we have his compass, the 30,000 foot view sheet in the show notes of the podcast, but any lasting words and where can people find you?
I will. Let me give you my lasting words. It's from the National Council on Aging. I want to give you some statistics that hopefully is a wake-up call to all of us, myself included. 80% of older adults are facing financial insecurity. 80%. I didn't say 10 or 20. I said, which is most of the listeners, most of us. Oh, okay. 49.6% of people over 60 do not have sufficient income to cover their basic needs. I'm talking about housing, food, and healthcare. They're having to decide between prescriptions and food or rent. This is crazy. And the last one I want to mention, number one cause for gut-wrenching fear among seniors is the fear of running out of money before they run out of life. And that's the number one fear. These are hardworking people, worked 40 years, played by the rules, were good employees, and this is how they end, 80%. So how can you get the compass? Let me just share with you. Go to my page. It's called onepagewealthcompass.com, onepagewealthcompass.com. The first thing you're going to see is download your free one-page PDF. It's right there. Get it for free. If you like it, it makes sense. Get the book on Amazon. Very inexpensive, I promise you. And then they go together like hand and glove. Okay, it really works together. There's nothing else on the site to sell. I'm not selling anything on the site except a link to Amazon. And everything is free. The blog is there. I'm not doing this to make money, Jennifer. My company is doing extremely well. We had our best year ever last year. I just want to give back. I don't want people 63 like I was facing that nightmare. It's just wrong. And I feel like somebody gave me a lifeline when I was in the middle of a storm, and I'd like to share it with other people. And that's why I'm doing this.
Oh, thank you so much, David, for being here. It's such a blessing. And I just really have a strong feeling I know every day you're impacting so many people's lives, and I'm just really excited to share this with my audience, because I'm guessing I'm going to hear some success stories after people download your book and take some action. And I love that you keep it simple, because that makes it easy, right? There's no more excuses, you guys. Pick up his book and his compass and just start following the map. It does not get easier than that. Because I think that people will take away from this, it's not about being perfect with money. Obviously, it is about being intentional, right? It's about having clarity. And it's about being willing to adjust before it's too late. And if you're listening and this episode made you think, I don't actually have a clear plan like most of us, that's your opportunity. We're going to link David's one-page wealth compass again in the show notes. I highly encourage you to check it out and take the time to get clarity on your financial direction. And as always, if you found value in this episode, make sure to follow She Talks Money, share it with a friend, and keep showing up for your financial future. Because the goal isn't just to make money, it's to build a life that supports you long term. See you next week.